he had to put up an act of being a dickhead, being a strong follower of the hardliner ideology of the Marines, being a follower of the Hello and welcome. Today I want to talk about the last two chapters of One Piece, chapter 1054 and 1055. After chapter 1053, Oda took off a 1 month's break, and the fandom was anticipating the next chapter, and Oda delivered. I think the last two chapters have been amazing. I had not put out a video about chapter 1054, so with already 2 chapters behind, I thought I'm gonna do it in one swoosh. And I also want to talk about the role of Aramaki, the Admiral Green Bull, and what I believe was his role in Wano Kuni, why he appeared there, and why it was specifically him who appeared, none other of the Marines. So let's get into it. So chapter 1054 dropped lots of revelations and had 3 scenes. It started off with the retainers, the samurai, facing off against Aramaki, Green Bull, and trying to stop him in his trek towards the pirates and the Alliance, celebrating their victory over Kaido. And Aramaki quickly releases his devil fruit power, revealing it to be a Logia, one that makes him a forest man, and he quickly seems to be a huge dick, as he just seems to be a loyal follower of the hard line of the Marines of Sakazuki, aka Akainu, and the retainers try their best at holding him off, and Momonosuke takes stage, which was a surprising thing, but I think deliberately set up by Oda, as Momonosuke had to have that character growth, and Momonosuke tried to make use of his newfound power as an adult and as the user of a devil fruit akin to Kaido's devil fruit. I think also a plot point that needs more revelation, probably something that we get more information on once the story introduces Vegapunk. But Momonosuke tries his best to make use of Kaido's abilities, giving off a failed Bolo Breath. And after Yamato tries to intervene and tries to help Momonosuke, Momonosuke declares that this is his match. And the scene transitions to the big revelation of the Shanks pirates being in front of Wano Kuni. And Shanks kind of reminisces about his past, about Luffy. Bartolomeo is mentioned, having burned down Shanks' flag in a side story. And Shanks declares that it is time to go after the One Piece. And the third scene is the Marines finally revealing what transpired at the end of the reverie. revealing Sabo supposedly having killed Cobra, the king of Alabasta, and the Princess Vivi having gone missing. I don't really see Sabo being that kind of character. I think even though he tries, I think he would go far to push down the Ten Liobito, the world nobles, and to push through the agenda of the revolutionary army. I think it's not in him to kill Cobra, and I think this is set up to frame him, and or Cobra and Vivi went missing on purpose / died went missing on purpose to side with the revolutionary army. I don't have much to support this theory other than a gut feeling, so I'll just move on. We get a panel where on one side Sabo is celebrated as the bringer of revolution, and Sakazuki on the other side declares that he will take on that role of fleet admiral and hold up the Marines' grip, so to say. And chapter 1055 continued with the fight against Aramaki, aka Green Bull. The battle getting more intense and him making more use of his Devil Fruit's ability to, it seems, suck his opponents dry of nutrients. We see the retainers struggle, and before the battle continues, we see a shift to Nico Robin and, surprise surprise, Law tagging along, being guided by the father of Oden, Skiaki, who was hiding as the Tengu, guiding them downstairs towards the road poneglyph and explaining about the nature of Wano Kuni. And this is a pretty big revelation about the nature of Wano Kuni and indirectly the nature of the world of One Piece, as he explains the walls around Wano Kuni had been erected and led to the old city, the old Wano Kuni, being flooded with water. So the new Wano Kuni had been built on top of that. So we have an 800 years old Wano Kuni, and even below that the ancient weapon Pluton, which had been a super pivotal element in the story of One Piece, going back all the way to the story arc in Alabasta. Crocodile, the former warlord Shichibukai, was seeking Pluton. That was the moment when Nico Robin was introduced back then. Her role already back then was for Crocodile to find Pluton. That was pretty much the central element of the whole Water 7 / Annie's Lobby arc, with CP9 trying to capture Nico Robin due to her ability to read the ancient language and thus being able to reawaken or find Pluton, but also them being CP9 being after Frankie due to him having the blueprints that had been handed down from master to student over generations, from his master Tom to Frankie, and which were ultimately burned by Frankie. So Pluton in 2 arcs had been such a pivotal element, and it had been referenced numerous times again and again alongside 2 other ancient weapons, and it's these three ancient weapons which seem to play such a pivotal role, which seem to be such a pivotal element to the story and the history inside One Piece, as this is strongly connected, it seems, to the lost century, to the history 800 years before, to the role of Joy Boy and everything. So this solidifies the importance of Wano Kuni. And it will be interesting whether or not the original ancient Pluton will play a role again. And it's kind of hinted that this would go along with Wano Kuni needing to drop its defense, opening itself and breaking the walls. And it will be really interesting if Pluton plays a role. I'm sure Pluton will play a role, and whether that is through a new Pluton being built, through possibly Frankie, or the old Pluton being revived. And if it's the later, the old Pluton being revived, that would make it necessary for Wano Kuni to open up. So there is the prospect of Wano Kuni opening up, not in the far future, but in the short future of the One Piece story. And the scene switches back to the fight against Aramaki, and surprise, surprise, Momonosuke being able to utilize his Devil Fruit's ability, fire off a full-blown, full-grown Bolo Brass, almost like Kaido, but it's mentioned by the Kappa Kawamatsu that his aim seems to not be the best one, which forces Aramaki to kind of sprout a doppelganger, which seems to be a kind of neat ability, side ability of arising from his Devil Fruit, to be able to regrow himself, giving him, it seems, regenerative abilities, which would give his Devil Fruit a property that usual Logia Devil Fruit have not yet exhibited, as Logias are a force of nature, thus being intangible, but aside from Marco's Phoenix ability, not regenerative. So if a Logia, take any Logia, take Kizaru or Aokiji, the two of the admirals, one former admiral, even through they are an element, light and ice respectively, if they get hit by Haki, as far as the story depicts it, if they get hurt, injured, they are injured for good, like they have to fight on with that injury. It's not like they can regenerate it. So regeneration had been an ability up till now exclusive to Marco the Phoenix, which fits his Phoenix theme, a phoenix always arising from his ash. But it makes sense that plants being able to grow and seal off injuries and having these probabilities, that this translates to Aramaki's Green Bolt's ability to regenerate. And the fight ultimately ends with Shanks unleashing his Conqueror's Haki, exhibiting some kind of distance communication through his Haki, or it's just Aramaki Green Bull recognizing Shanks' haki. It's not really clear if this is it's kind of implicit how straight up Shanks is capable of communicating through haki, but it seems enough to scare off Aramaki, Green Bull. And this is a point which I want to connect to later in the video, as it is very important to ask the question, what has been even the reason for Green Bull, an admiral appearing in Wano Kuni, as the story is pretty much where it started. Like, Green Bull appearing or not appearing has ultimately not made a difference, and Shanks appearing or not ultimately has not made a difference, as Shanks has never entered Wano Kuni. We, the readers, got him on screen, on panel, but for the other characters, for Luffy, no reunion happened, so Shanks is pretty much irrelevant. The same outcome would have been if Green Bull, Aramaki would have never even set foot on Wano Kuni to begin with, completely eliminating the need for Shanks to scare away the Admiral, which actually was not necessary, I believe. We see the chapter 1055 ending with the four characters, the four Straw Hats, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei, sitting there in a pretty relaxed mood. And them jokingly saying, well, we didn't have to intervene. And this altogether is part of why I believe Oda deliberately chose to have Aramaki, Green Bull, appear. Why Aramaki is a story tool, a tool for Oda to tell story, but also to exhibit character development. Very subtle with the Straw Hats, but also Momonosuke, and without confrontation, giving the reader an indirect power scaling, as this has been a long-lasting question. Where are the admirals in terms of power? Are they on a level with a Yonko, or are they below the level of a Yonko? And to me, it had always been displayed in a fashion that admirals are below Yonko, or else it would make absolutely no sense for one Yonko holding a position of such power that it would not be feasible for an admiral to take on a Yonko alone, and that even taking a Yonko with 2 or 3 admirals would bear the risk of casualties on both sides, also on the sides of the Marines, casualties big enough to leave them vulnerable or exposed to any additional threat, possibly another Yonko, another emperor, as seen in the Paramount War, the war between the Marines and the Whitebeard pirates, where the Marines would rather avoid confrontation with Shanks, especially after they went through the long battle with Whitebeard and his crew. But in this video, I don't want to address the implications of the power scaling any further. I want to focus on the role of Aramaki, Green Bull. And first of all, why I believe it was specifically him that appeared and not any of the other admirals. And that is that the fan base also has speculated for long a connection of him to Wano Kuni. Probably a connection of him and Fujitora, those two new admirals who seem to be dressed in a style which is only found in Wano Kuni, a samurai, traditional Japanese dress style. And both of these admirals also wielding katana, Japanese sword, indicating that they have a heritage from Wano Kuni, thus having some kind of personal relation to Wano Kuni. Also, his whole name, Aramaki, Green Bull, seeming to have a relationship or connection with Ushimaru, one of the former daimyo of Wano Kuni, who seemed to have a kimono with a bull pattern. Also the name Ushimaru, Ushi meaning cow or bull, which might also have a connection with Zoro, whose hair color is green, who seems to be have some ancestry to Wano Kuni, growing up in a village of people who seem to have originated from Wano Kuni, being a swordsman, yalla yalla yalla. So there seems to be a big unsolved connection between Wano Kuni, Green Bull, and Zoro, and possibly all of them. And I speculated in one of my previous videos a confrontation between Zoro and Green Bull, Aramaki, which did not transpire, and I was kind of sad and disappointed about that. But maybe that's a story thread that Oda is gonna tie into the rest of the story later. Maybe that's a confrontation that is still up in the future of One Piece. And aside from it having been Aramaki, Green Bull specifically, he also served a more general role. He served the role in that moment, for one, for Momonosuke, to show that even after Luffy and the Alliance leave Wano Kuni, that Momonosuke is willing and going to take on the mantle of his father and Luffy, to protect Wano Kuni from outside forces. And even Momonosuke addressed Yamato's wish to venture outside of Wano Kuni, and that he cannot rely on her / him to protect him and Wano Kuni in the future, and that he has to grow and that he is willing to grow. And I think with him mastering his Devil Fruit's ability, he showed the first step in doing so, in growing. Aramaki, Green Bull gave a chance to Momonosuke to grow. But second, even through Green Bull ultimately did not face off against Luffy, just the sheer display of him sitting there very casually and eating his Luffy eating his dangomochi, the small round balls on a stick, accompanied by Zoro and Sanji and Jinbei. and them being not even relieved, but just casually stating that they didn't have to intervene in the end at all. Like they didn't sit there with fear on their face, and Oda didn't draw them with relieved expressions and tiny sweat drops on their face. But they Oda showcased them in a very casual, relaxed situation, relaxed state, indicating that at least they would have, the way it's depicted, at least they would have believed Aramaki to not have been a threat that they could not manage. The way it's depicted, it seems they were confident and relaxed enough to be certain that they could ward off Aramaki, even after he had shown his devil fruit ability. They were absolutely confident in warding off and beating an admiral. So it was not necessary to have them clash. It was very subtle, but this small scene showed that Luffy and his crew is on a level where they probably don't have to fear a single admiral. In my past videos I talked a lot about that I don't feel Luffy is on the exact same level as the other Yonko yet. Specifically Shanks, Kaido and Big Mom. Possibly Luffy is on a level with Blackbeard. That's hard to measure, as we the readers haven't seen Blackbeard in action for a long time. But I think Luffy beat Kaido through group effort. He deserves the title of Yonko, but his bounty of 3 billion is justified. It's not too high, it's not too low. It's a representation of his strengths. It is a stylistic choice by Oda, the author, to give the reader a reference where Luffy is. All the inside, in-world explanations aside, I believe still to be Luffy to be as strong as his bounty is high. Thus, him not having such a high bounty as Shanks indicates that he is not as strong as Shanks. And I said it would be not conducive to tell a story if he were on the same level as Shanks, as we the readers wanna see Luffy grow a tiny bit more, I feel, before he finally meets up with Shanks and fulfills his promise of having been the Pirate King, rightfully returning the hat. And that was also the reason why Shanks could not have entered Wano Ch yet. And that was also a smart double move of Oda to get rid of Green Bull without having him engage in a serious fight, but at the same time use Shanks to do so and give the reader some screen time with Shanks, which might also be due to the newest movie One Piece Red starting to air in Japanese theaters on August 6th. So it's also a kind of marketing. We gotta look at it that way, I think. And on top of that, I'm gonna throw in a further theory, which has not a lot of basis, so I can't really solidify this theory right now, but I theorize that Green Bull, Aramaki, his motivation, the motivation for his character, not Oda's reason to have him appear, but the in-world motivation for Green Bull to appear in Wano Kuni had been to check on his home country. Aramaki has appeared in Wano Kuni to check on his home country, to check in what condition Wano Kuni is after the defeat of Kaido, to check whether or not his home country is in good hands, and to inform the samurai and Momonosuke about outside forces being a threat and that they need to be careful. He, in his role as an admiral, probably could not walk in and just be buddy-buddy and friendly with everyone. He had to put up an act of being a dickhead, being a strong follower of the hardliner ideology of the Marines, being a follower of the nobles, of the world nobles, the Ten Ryobito. It was all an act, I believe. And he explained it. Kaido, even though he was not good, even though it was tyranny, even though he was ruling with an iron fist, and even though the citizens of Wano Kuni suffered for 20 years, his rule ultimately protected Wano Kuni from outside forces. He was a deterrent for anyone trying to seize Wano Kuni, specifically against the world government. And I had this long-lasting theory that Kaido has a gatekeeper role. Kaido, even though he was not a good person, ultimately served a good purpose. He, through the sheer fact of being in Wano Kuni, protected Wano Kuni from any outside force. And Kaido was, it seems, waiting for Joy Boy. Oden's plan, his wish was always to open up Wano Kuni, to prepare Wano Kuni for the arrival of Joy Boy. Would he have done so? Possibly Wano Kuni would not have been ready, as Joy Boy is, as we all know by now, Luffy. Would Wano Kuni have been opened prematurely? Would Wano Kuni have been opened up like 10 years, 20 years ago? Assume Oden had defeated Kaido, chased away Kaido, and opened up Wano Kuni. Wano Kuni possibly might have lost its defense, and the world government might have marched in on Wano Kuni, seized the country, and took Pluton. So it seems kinda macabre, it seems kinda twisted to depict Kaido as good, but even though he is not a good person, he's not a morally good person, he served a good purpose for the story of One Piece and possibly ultimately even for the citizens of Wano Kuni. Kaido might have been the one who protected Wano Kuni more than anyone else. And now that Wano Kuni is gone, that role has fallen back on the next generation, on Luffy, on Yamato, but also on Momonosuke. And these characters now need to display that they are powerful enough, capable enough to protect Wano Kuni till the day the country is ready to truly open up. And that will also be the point when it will show what relevance Pluton will have how that ancient weapon possibly will be implemented in the story. And we've seen, and this seems to be more than a coincidence, both Kaido and Big Mom in their defeat being crushed down all the way the center of Wano Kuni, creating what seems like two vertical holes all the way to the bottom of Wano Kuni. And that's pretty much where Pluton is. So I predict that we will see an escalation not in terms of fighting, characters clashing necessarily, but an escalation in terms of storytelling in the very few next chapters. I think all the next chapters 1056, 57, 58, 9, and 60 will lead up to huge revelations in Wano Kuni. And I think Oda will not wait with these revelations till after the Straw Hats depart. I think we will get these revelations in the next few chapters. So the next chapters are gonna be very interesting, and we're gonna see what course the story is gonna take. So thank you very much for listening. This turned out again a very long video. I hope there's a part of the community that enjoys these long videos. So if you do, give me a like, subscribe, and follow me. Thank you very much, and bye.